What job should marketing get done in a company?
That's a big question. And I've been doing marketing for over 10 years, I would say. And I think for me, it all comes down to helping the company, the service, the product get seen by the right people. It starts with getting seen. So for me, it's all about being seen. But if you go a layer deeper than that, it's like, what does it mean to be seen, to be understood? And then once you're understood, to be, having people take action to learn more, to be interested. So for me, it all starts with the act of seeing and getting people to see. And I think it's interesting with marketing because you get a really bad reputation for, let's say, the crazy side of marketing, which is like going viral and, millions of views. And that's still the job of marketing. But ultimately, like if you get those views and you are seen by people, if it doesn't connect to something deeper, or let's say if people don't take action or if they don't understand what they're seeing, like it's not necessarily the best marketing, but it is the first step in the job of marketing, which is to, get people to see what you do, who you are, and potentially learn more and take action.
That's Christine Orchard. She's a founder and chief strategist at Orchard Strategy, a boutique content marketing agency that helps founders attract clients on LinkedIn without relying on cold outreach or cringe-worthy content. Christine has written over 2,800 LinkedIn posts and led arc.dev from seed to acquisition. She also hosts the show Marketers Do Coffee, so expect a thrilling conversation with two experienced hosts. Not so much sure about me, but I know she brings her experience and her competency in interviewing to this episode, which made it really fun. But before we get back to the episode, run the intro. Welcome to On Marketing, a show to help you think more strategically about marketing and life. I won't tell you what to think, I'll help you improve how you think. I'm Jordan Ogren, a marketing strategist with over 9 years of experience and a podcast host for the last 4. This episode was originally recorded on April 28th, 2026, and all views shared are the individual views of the host and guests, not those of their employers or associate organizations. This show is for informational purposes, not professional advice. Thank you for being here. But one last thing before we get into the show, I want to be open and transparent with you that I've been failing to be consistent with the releases of these episodes. As you just heard, this one was recorded on April 28th, so 3 months ago, I'm really bad with math. I recently got a job in April as a digital marketing manager for Fox Communities Credit Union in the Wisconsin Green Bay area. And I just want to be honest, that shift, along with all the things that I had been running or creating while I was unemployed, the meetups, this podcast, newsletter, that once I got the job, quickly realized that the pace was quite unattainable for me to do all of those things. So sadly, the podcast was one of those items that was put on the shelf while I kept the meetups going, and I'm doing really well in my role, really enjoying it, so clearly prioritize those. But as you notice, I don't think an episode came out in June, so I've been failing to treat this as a priority. And while I put it on a shelf for a time being, it is not my goal or my intention to keep it on the shelf or to have it be the constantly last prioritized thing. I want to build it into the meetups. I recently did an expert session on personal branding for our marketing meetups, and I recorded that, and I hope that can become a podcast where I can also record something like this, a little bit of extra context, but then it goes into it. So just be sure, don't give up on me, that this podcast, this show will continually grow into something that is both sustainable for me, but is continually grounded in true value for you, the listener, whether that's to improve how you think about marketing, or I know some listeners aren't marketers, but they just want to think better about life, think better about marketing, maybe themselves. So I hope it still and will continue delivering value for you. But just wanted to be open and honest of why it's been a very long time for a release, in that A, I'm not happy with it, and B, things will change in the future. So thank you for sticking around. I really hope you enjoy this episode with Christine. She is one smart cookie. So in the work you do, Christine, how do you actualize, how do you act on that definition of marketing, on helping the clients you work with get seen, but then probably more so on those steps after the peer awareness, which then like fit and all of those things? Talk to me in your own work.
I think, so I'll focus on my business because it's a good example, because it really narrows down to like a specific, let's think of a specific person who has a business, maybe a solo founder or just a solo consultant. And I really want to get like personal about what it means to be seen, because this is the smallest unit of a business, okay, one person business. And they you want to be seen because you want to grow. Okay. So the first step is needed to be people to see that you exist, what you do, resonate with that, and then hopefully reach out to you. So that's the smallest unit of like the people I work with. I do work with bigger companies too, but this is a good example. And I think that the cool thing about marketing is that there's so many layers. There's the practical layer, there's the emotional layer, there's there's the data layer. You could just think about all the layers of marketing, but deep down, it's like a really emotional thing, right? Because you want to be, let's say if you're a solo consultant, we're going with that example again, you want to be seen. You want to be people to see who you are. But it's also a little bit vulnerable and a little bit scary to put yourself out there, to put your points of view out there, to put your actual beliefs and your stories and your experiences. And as if you are a marketer, you kind of know that those are the things that tend to work really well to get attention and to define who you are, but they're also some of the most vulnerable things. And so there's like, people want to be seen, but there's a tension because how much do you want to be seen, or how whole of a person do you want to put out there when you're talking about the internet? And so I think it's a really interesting tension, and I try to help people navigate that, try to encourage them to share more without overstepping maybe a line, but really encouraging them, if you are true to yourself, you tell stories that are true to your experience, these things will help you get seen by the right people and almost be like magnetic and attract those people to you that you want to work with, whether they're customers or talent, to work with you, to hire. I think that it is sort of the right way to approach marketing, but again, it is very vulnerable. And so some of the surprising biggest fears I hear from people, there's just that fear of posting, of almost like, again, like vulnerability, and is it okay to post this? Am I being too personal? And so I think navigating all of these things are so important to doing marketing well. Especially, you can even draw it to a bigger level of the companies who also have individuals who are the face of their company. It also matters to them. But when you really think of that one example, a solo founder putting their entire personality and experience on the line, there's just a lot of emotions to navigate to be able to do that. But I believe it is the way. And if you just look at like all the numbers too, like what kind of content gets seen, it's the stuff that has a bit more, we'll call, I guess I call them like raw materials that are true to you, or it has like real points and concrete examples and things that could only come from you, the individual. Especially with AI, anybody can tell any story that's generic. Anybody could do a how-to guide on like how to write the best hooks, write 5 hooks that will make your content go viral. But to really get attention that helps you stand out, it's got to be personal.
I love that. It's definitely in the early stages, and even once you do it a lot, it's still, I think, scary, but definitely in those early stages of kind of putting lines in the sand, to your point of like, what do I want to be seen from? Because not everybody's personal brand is their full self. It's not like, maybe I don't talk about the triathlons I do, but then there's another person who that does seep into their content, whether they do a real hard reach of here's 7 things I learned from my last triathlon, or they just have lessons that they imbued into it. But I think there's scariness of like like what's too far, what's not far enough. But I would even extrapolate that to your point of the smallest unit, but the business in general, even to the side of, you talked about creators, but even businesses, to do marketing well, they need to, I think, be vulnerable in the stories they tell versus the typical jargon-based PR where it's like, I don't even understand what you're saying. Or when someone leaves, it's very masquerading around a story that we all know isn't true, versus kind of going to that place of like, we made a mistake by hiring this person. We thought it was a fit, in like being very open and honest. So I even think from a person to a company, that inherent fear or scaredness around showing, because I mean, that to your point, like being seen is like relationships, love, what is that at its core? It's seeing the other person in their totality, which is, it's why I don't have many friends. I kind of go away from that. That's scary. I don't want to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
seen. So I love that you go there, because I think it's the same for a company, whether it's a solopreneur or a larger company, the individuals, or just the company in general. Like, it has to lean into that vulnerability. Talk to me though on kind of that brand piece, whether it's a personal brand or the company brand. Like, how do you define what should be seen and what shouldn't be seen? Should everything? Should I talk about my daughter all the time? Sometimes? Like, how do you think
Yeah,
through
this
that?
is a great question. And I think it starts with sort of laying it all out, like what you have, again, raw materials, like what is unique to you, the stories, the experiences, the data points. I mean, I create a credibility doc, which is it's a bit more business related. We'll call it that. We'll start with the credibility doc is like the strongest thing. Like, what makes you as a person credible to talk about your business. And so this can be for businesses that are a bit bigger too, because if I'm listening to you and if you've had 20 years experience doing, selling beauty products, I'm going to be, okay, this guy probably knows what he's talking about. But if you don't, then we're going to have to find other things we can use to sort of build that credibility. So I would say credibility is sort of the main group of things I look for. And then the thing about like your daughter or your triathlons or something, I would only say that that's an interesting detail you should pepper on as like a salt and pepper, like a seasoning here and there, which makes you relatable. Serves a totally different goal because it's not credible to talk about the thing you're going to talk about most of the time, which is business related. So I actually tend to be very strategic. Most things I talk about, I was with a client doing an exercise last week. We kind of listed all these points of view he had, and then we could very clearly see like which one's connected to the business. And we said, all right, we're going to talk about those. And these other ones don't have a clear connection to your business. So you could talk about them occasionally, experiment with that. But I think when you lay it out, it becomes clearer to you where you should focus. And so I definitely don't say never talk about X, but just like, let's do most of our efforts to focus on these other things that, again, tie to your business and making you a person that people would want to listen to. Because again, below these layers of like, okay, first see you, the ultimate goal for business is trust. So if I'm going to trust you, I have to say, or if I need to trust someone, I need to find, why they're credible and hear various versions of that before I'm going to listen to them. So if you see on LinkedIn, one of the best hooks that people use, and it works if it's true, is you start off by just establishing your credibility. So like give me a crazy number of hours. I spend 95 hours a week on LinkedIn. And then continue and say like, here's my take on what works on LinkedIn. Like you just establish your credibility in that first line. It works on like a content level, but it also needs to work on like a business level of like, why are you relevant to this? So yeah, focus in on what's business relevant and salt and pepper in the other stuff that parasocial content is what I would say. You can salt and pepper. Some people say you don't need it all. I would say occasionally.
Yeah, no, I love that because I think the credible piece is the most important, because if I'm going to a mechanic or something, clearly I want them to be nice, personable, relatable, but at the end of the day, if they can't do my oil change, it doesn't really matter how nice they are.
Exactly.
So I really like leading with that or focusing first on that. So Christine, in this work of whether it's on LinkedIn, in social, in content, working, helping people be seen to then build to that point of trust, what is something in the last year, 2, 3 years that you've believed something and now you believe something different? It may not be a full 180, it could just be a pivot, but it's like I used to think this was the way and now I think this slightly different thing could be the way. What for you have you changed your mind on or slightly budged?
The concept of virality, like I think some people say you don't need it at all. Like you can just build, and there are a lot of people on my podcast on Marketers Do Coffee who believe, you know what, you don't need parasocial content, you don't need virality, you just need consistent, talk to your buyers' pain points, etc. On the other side, there's the people who just like focus on virality. So I had another guest on my podcast too, and he was talking about, viral infographics. So I think there's like kind of these like two camps of people. And I think that they're at odds with each other, maybe just because it's a natural, black or white situation. Like, do you need virality to succeed in your business, or could you just do the bread and butter sort of things? I spent, let's say in 2024, I basically spent all my working hours trying to figure out how to go viral on LinkedIn, basically. Because we were starting in our company and sort of starting let's say the founder and a few people in the company were trying to grow our LinkedIn accounts. And I think you basically find some mathematical truths about viral content. Like what goes viral tends to also go viral again. Like once you find this thing, it will go viral again. Virality did boost our followers. Like we could see the results, right? We could see the spike on our website. So you can't argue with the data, but you also couldn't say that like virality alone grew the business. It was like you needed this movement. It was almost like momentum came from viral posts, but the other stuff has to be there. The credibility, right? You can't just go viral and then you go to your site and you're like, who's this person? Why is she selling me this? You need to have the other things there. So I think this is like anything in life, right? You can have a beautiful exterior, but if you have nothing below it, you're also going to have problems in life, right? So I used to think, I guess I'd be more simplistic about, do you need virality or not? Like only viral's all that matters. And then I was like, okay, maybe not. Because my own LinkedIn account grew quite a lot in 2024. And then I think last year it didn't, because I kind of didn't focus on viral content. And I just think that now everything has its place. And I think I try for my clients, we say, okay, we're going to put 20% of our effort to go viral to get you those boosts in growth and those boosts in, followers and visibility and all of that. We find a way that makes sense for you. We're not going to do what went viral for A for B because it's a different person, different service. You find what goes viral for them, but then you also make sure all of the rest of the content is very much like buyer focused. Their profile is like a landing page. Their, social proof is there. You've got to have the other stuff. So it's like a whole package type of thing. And that's what I believe now. And that's how I operate. And it's just easier to be online and soundbite and say, you don't need viral content or it doesn't matter about your followers. I mean, followers itself doesn't matter, but I think it brings a momentum in certain ways that does help a business. And yeah, so that's where I fall on sort of viral versus not viral content.
I love it. I think a lot of marketing truths are the middle ground, the middle path, which would be that path of, you need probably some viralness or not even maybe viral, but just things to blow up per se to give that wind to your flames. But if you don't have stuff on the fire already, the wind won't really help a ton. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I like to use like artists, usually hip hop artists, like you can see like Lil Nas X or some of these that did go viral, but maybe they either didn't have a base or they weren't really sure who they were for. And then all of a sudden 5 years later, it's almost worse than if you take a Russ, which is this hip hop artist that released an album or a song a week. And then eventually now he's on, Big Sean songs and stuff. And it's like, that would be a very different slow growth. He had a few moments where maybe a song went viral, but he didn't hit that point where you go viral and you don't have that thing back at home, to your point. So I really like that. And I think a lot of truths are that middle path. It's neither black or white. It's almost always gray.
And it's kind of like to me, everything is about the craft. Okay, so let's say the craft of whatever you're doing, your business, content is just a piece of that. So I don't think, for most people, content isn't their business. For me it is, but not for everyone. But let's say like you need to have the ability to do that thing again. And so what I mean is like if you go viral doing something crazy that like you can't repeat or it doesn't align with like what you actually believe, there's a lot of, it just is hard to repeat this again. But if you're going viral doing something that is easy for you to do and continue to repeat, it's just like it makes more sense. So all I'm saying is definitely viral has to be something, your craft has to be related to the thing that's going viral, right? So, or the core of your business or whatever. Recently, just it is a topic that people keep talking about in my circles. And so
I think it's a worthy debate or a worthy way.
Yeah, it's a debate
of like figuring a debate. But then like at the end of that debate, it's kind of like what now, which usually that what now answer is that middle path. It's like maybe 30% for viral, 70% for that repeat motion content, or it's 10%, 90%. So I really like that. And that makes just kind of rooted in that strategic approach per se. It's not either we're going to go viral with every post or we're never going to aim for it. I like that.
And I don't know how some people, there's like probably a line of business where some people would say, you know what, I'll do anything that makes my business grow. And some people are probably on that side, right? Other people are probably like, you know what, I only want to do things that feel good. There's people on different sides. And I think I would I'm in the middle, right? But there was a point where I was going viral for myself for remote work content. And that was the way I was going viral. I was getting a lot of followers that were like, they wanted remote jobs and things like that. And I just knew in my like that wasn't where I was going. If I could be like the best remote work person, that wasn't like the future I wanted. And actually, my colleague, she is, and we're not colleagues anymore, but my former colleague at the time. So she became, the remote, I think she's called the remote marketer, and she has like 70,000 followers, and that's like what she does on LinkedIn now. And it's like so great for her because she wanted that. And so for me, like I stopped doing posts like that would go viral. It was like lists of where you could find remote jobs. And I was like, I just focused on like heads of marketing and founders and like a much smaller niche because it just felt like it was right for me. And so for me, it was important that the work I did was leading somewhere that, like, maybe this does tie into like being seen, but like I wanted to be seen as the person that I like identified with, and like marketing, founders, startups, content, that was my thing. I didn't want to be known for remote work. So like I just moved away from that despite the numbers being there. So again, I don't know if every founder or business would operate this way. Some people might just do that until they exhaust that and then switch gears, which is a bit bait and switch, but it's not something I will do. And it's typically, I don't work with clients who want to do that. Like do anything to go viral and then we'll switch to what we want to talk about. People are smart. People don't want to listen. They won't follow you for very long.
Yeah, it's hard to fool the consumer, I feel, as much as we can sometimes downplay them. They're pretty smart at catching on to those things.
Absolutely.
All right, Christine, I think that's enough on marketing. Are you ready to get into the maybe more important topic of life?
Yes, sure.
I mean, viral is definitely something that I could talk about forever, virality. But to you, and just for you personally, Christine, what is the job of life? What are you hiring life for? So at the end of life, you would look back and you would say that was a life well lived. What for you defines that?
Adventure. I would say the one word being adventure. It was in my like vows when I got married. It's something we prioritize as a family now. I have a son, he's 3 years old, and it's sort of like, if I could say there was like a slogan, I always say, can we squeeze more juice out of this? Like, can we squeeze more juice out of this day? Can we squeeze more juice out of this adventure? That, like, say we're going on a holiday trip or something. And I just think that it's like time, we don't get it back. So you just gotta, I'm an expat who lives in Taiwan. I've lived in Taiwan for 16 years, actually. I moved here after college, and then because I wanted to know Chinese, I wanted to learn Chinese in a way that was somewhat fluent. But by the time you become fluent in the language, you can't help but meet people and friends and things like that. So then I became, I met my husband eventually and got married. So I think I definitely look at life as an adventure, but at the same time, I don't even think that I'm like the most adventurous person. So I wonder if people would be surprised if they heard me say that, because I'm actually a very diligent, very, business focused person most of the time. But that, it's to my core values, I think, adventure.
And is that, you kind of said a little bit, but is that rooted in just that time is, priceless and you want to adventure, maximize that time? Or where does your sense of adventure stem from?
Yeah. So I think maybe it's an unhealthy anxiety about like the fact that I'm gonna be 80 someday, and I'm gonna think about, when I'm 80, did I do this, not do that? Like I think about that like more than most people think about that. I don't think I think about it when it comes to business though, but I said I'll think about it when it's like, okay, should I go home to see my family? I go home to see my family in Ohio, which is where I'm originally from. I go home once a year, and I always, I try to. So at least I'm saying, because when I'm 80, I don't want to say like, oh, I didn't go back for 5 years. Like there's some people, expats, who end up just not going back for a long time. And then I don't want to be that person. So I think about it when I'm making decisions like, all right, this year, what am I going to do? So I think it comes from an anxiety of like not wanting to regret anything and wanting to just see as much in the world and in life as I can.
So almost like a minimization of regret kind of way that you live your life, trying to minimize regrets, or maybe not in all areas.
Yes. I think it's more emotional. Like I don't want to miss something, or I don't want to say like, oh, I didn't have enough time with this person. So like, I call my grandma every week, and it's not because I'm like thinking I'm not thinking that much about it, but I just want to make sure that I'm spending time with people who are important to me. I'm just very aware of spending time doing things that are important to me, not wasting time, that kind of thing.
Were you always this way, Christine, as like a high school kid, or maybe early after high school, or was there things at which kind of push you into this direction to just maximize or just to use everything?
It's hard to know like where, like how you exactly become the way that you become, because my parents
Yeah.
have two daughters and I'm the one that lives on, again, the other side of the world. If you dug a hole from where I was born, you would end up where I am now, which is in Taiwan. Um, I think there was a sense of the world being small where I was from, as in like my parents and grandparents kind of like, I think they went to the same high school and they married people from the same high school or the same town. And then when I started to see that the world was bigger, I think it was like, do you know 4-H? Well, you're from Wisconsin. You probably know 4-H, the club. My
Yep.
first,
Yep.
like our 4-H, like let us go on these like trips. So they had this 4-H trip to this like farm in Denmark. And so that was like my first trip, like at 12 years old. And I was super homesick, but I was like, wow, the world is so big. And just seeing the world that young and realizing how much you don't see, you know, and how much there was to see. I just became obsessed with wanting to see more and see more people and more places and languages and things like that, which is why now I'm fluent in Chinese and I live in Taiwan. That's what I was saying. Adventure is important to me, but I have been in Taiwan for 15 years. Maybe it's time for a new adventure. Maybe. We will see. But I think when you're young, I was like, I want to learn all the languages and visit all the places. And so, but I have been here in Taiwan for a while because I do think it's important to go deep in an area as well. And so I wanted to like master Chinese, and I think I have. I mean, I'll never be a native speaker, but I'm a fluent speaker of Chinese, so that I hit that goal, and I don't know, gotta make some new goals now.
No, I love that. I do think it's always hard to have that one experience, that one thing, but it is usually like a kind of a cookie trail or crumbles of like, oh yeah, I went on this trip and that kind of opened my mind to how big it is. Or I read this book and I learned about this thing and I wanted to go visit that. And I think there's a like how many of us have that call, whatever we want to call it, the call to adventure, the call to wild, that we don't answer, we don't listen to. And there's probably tons of them for you, but it's like, it's very interesting to find people who have leaned into, to your point, having siblings or other people that had similar experiences, but then just go different ways, or you go like a whole different way where, yeah, they're still in Ohio and I'm all the way over here, or that. Go ahead. Did you have a thought to that?
I don't know. I wonder how people make decisions actually, like, because I make decisions like almost the decision is already made. Like I don't make the decision. Like it was like, I just like follow my intuition in a sense of like, this is right. I just know I need to do this. And so I wonder, like for you, like, have you ever made like a big decision in a way that was like, do you just like, you know, make a checklist and check, you know, the pros and cons, or like, how do you make big decisions in your life?
Yeah, no, I think I'm aligned with you. I would call it more maybe like the spirit of Christ. But yeah, like that thought that if I'm aligned with that spirit, then the answer is already there. It's the seek and or ask and you it shall be given. I always struggled with that verse because it's like I've asked for new toys or new cars or whatever, but it's like if you ask what the spirit wants, then like you will receive it, because like the intuition, the spirit will lead you to. So I definitely feel that way. I mean, I may early in a decision, or like I like to like kind of put it against stuff. So like with my job search, I had kind of prototypes of jobs I wanted. So then I could always root it into that of like this new job. How does it root against my kind of my prototypes? But also that intuition, to your point, is way more important, where if I have that intuition of like, no, this isn't it, body's telling me, I think the body keeps a score. So I always try to also listen to that in interactions. Like, am I tense? Am I anxious? Or is this normal anxiety? Or is this like my body's seeing things that I'm unable to see?
Yeah. And I think that goes to like life, I guess. I think you kind of know what you want. Like it's not a thinking thing. You just kind of, sometimes you just know, like, I want this thing, or I want to go there, or I want to see that. And so I also don't try to rush, like, oh, I need an adventure. I'm not a person who just books trips just because, but like if I decide, like I just said, I really want to go to Japan. I just decided Japan is actually close to Taiwan, so it's not a big thing. But I just felt like we were talking about all these other places and it didn't feel right until we said, let's go to Japan. My son is 3. He has all these little cars. This Tomica is this brand that's like Japanese cars. And I'm like, I want him to see these cars. Like when you're in Japan, it feels like the Tomicas are real because they actually are they're modeled after Japanese cars. So anyway, I think with decisions, they just become right. The right answer becomes evident to you. And so, for the little things or the big things, I think that's how I operate. And I guess adventure is the theme, but it doesn't have to be adventure that's not aligned with my, the things that feel right.
Yeah, I think we could probably go on forever because adventure and how you adventure, even to your point of like you've been where you're at for a while, where there's more of this nomad adventure that just literally goes to different places. I would also argue your career could be an adventure where there's the status quo. So I even think we could probably go forever of how you're living that adventure through the work you're doing or some of those things. But I want to kind of pivot to the final question because I think I could talk to you forever, Christine. So if maybe you're aware of this movie or not, but it's called Inception.
Yeah.
It's a movie where people go into dreams of individuals and incept an idea, usually nefarious, that then that person wakes up and they act out of that as their own dream. I want you to think more in a benevolent framing. What idea would you incept in the minds of every human on this planet? So tomorrow we wake up and the idea you incept is my idea now, and I live out of that idea. What idea do you incept to every human on this planet?
I think it does tie to my work, but also my life, sort of, what is the goal of life? I think I want to encourage people that sharing more in whatever format they want to share, whether it's posting online, sharing with their friends in person, sharing more will have more upside than it will have downside. There will sometimes be downside when you share things. There will sometimes be anxiety or, awkwardness or uncertainty or whatever. But I think if people can come to the feeling that, yes, sharing of themselves, sharing their ideas, their thoughts, whatever it is, sharing is the right thing, even if it has some again, negative things along the way. And I just think there's so much opportunity to be gained from sharing more of yourself, more of, as I said, it could be any format you want, but I think that sometimes people get overly afraid to share things because of what people will think, or because the internet will cancel you, or just think of any, and so people don't share. And I think that is the basis of connecting. To share is the starting point to connect and to all of the things that we want in life, meaningful relationships. And I say that as someone who sits in Taiwan and I connect with people online. And so my format of doing sharing is online, but you can do it in person. It's just, I think that there's a lot of fear in the world today, and fear, or like you want to avoid the bad experiences. But I want to incept that idea that there's so much good experiences that can come from sharing if you can just get through those potential bad things. So that's what I would like to share with people.
I love that, Christine. And I think it just kind of ties the bow on this full conversation. While you can be seen without sharing, I think sharing is a first step to being seen. Without sharing, it's far harder to
really
be seen.
I love right? That. Otherwise, you're seeing a shell potentially, right? If you're performing, performing is not being seen, and it's not the same way, right? Being seen for who you are and what you believe and all of that. Yeah.
And all that starts with having the courage to share. So thank you.
And I agree,
Christine,
it is hard. It can be hard. Thank you, Jordan, for inviting me. This was a wonderful conversation. Yeah. I'm so glad that we had a chance to connect.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I had a lot of fun. And this is the end of the podcast. What one idea or topic of conversation stood out to you today? Write it down, share it with a friend, post it on social. The main thing is take action. That's how we go from theory to mastery. We need to practice. We need to put it into practice. Thank you for listening and being here, and I hope you tune in next week.